Hi, it's Toby from Heavyweight MMA. Today, I was really lucky to talk with Shahir Kayoom, a man that's trained in many countries. I met him in Australia, but he's also trained in Thailand, Brazil, the States, Australia, etc., in his quest to be a good martial artist and competitor. Now, the man's fought in MMA against some killers. He's fought in Thai boxing against killers. And now he's better known as a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu coach out of his gym in Thailand. Please have a listen. He's a great guy.
Man to man, combat hand to hand, hands locked, ready for the last stand, elbow drops, kicks fade bang. If I connect you, levitate, better settle mate, lights out, knocked out by the heavyweight.
Good man, good Tobes. I'm good, mate.
Well, it's true, man. I was thinking just before, as I read through some of your credentials, I was thinking, sometimes you see these martial artists, guys that have like lists of like 30 black belts and stuff, it's like unbelievable. You're almost to that point, bro. Because when I started looking through like some of the lists and you're almost to that point that it's unbelievable. Can you just talk a little bit on your credentials?
I like those guys that like Grandmaster 32 degrees of whatever
every style they can find. They're even like Muay Thai black belts and kickboxing black belts and MMA black belts.
I still find that funny, man, because my Muay Thai upbringing was Bangkok. So the whole black belt Muay Thai thing, I just found it a bit unusual, right? Because they don't really like, how do I put it? Just, I'm sure in the traditional Muay Boran circles and curriculum, for sure, you need that. But if you just come in from a professional Muay Thai background, you just like, I didn't have any of that. I just got, you want to fight, train, all right, then we lob you in, and then off you go, and good luck. But so I started judo when I was around 5, because I was what was the terms they used there back in the day?
ADHD.
Very spirited young man.
Oh, very spirited.
Very spirited, highly distracting. Very energetic, and then I'm sure behind closed doors, Mrs. Kayoom, your son's the devil. But so I started judo with the late Master Go. He was one of the original pioneers of judo in Malaysia, and his club nowadays has been run by his son David Go, and they're still around. And it was really nostalgic. Before COVID, I went home to go visit my dad, and the old judo club was still there. I think I have a photo of it somewhere, and I posted on Instagram, and I was just like memories, But so judo, and then when Bruce Lee kicked off, I thought, I want to do that, but there was no Jet Kune Do around at the time where I was growing up. So my mom stuck me into ITF Taekwondo with Master Lip. He passed away, and then I just kind of went back and forth between Taekwondo and Judo, and then I just kind of it was a little bit more flash, so I kind of stuck with Taekwondo for a bit, and then got my black belt there, and then when my folks moved over to Sydney, I continued doing Taekwondo there. And then I won the Australian championships for Taekwondo. And then I progressed from that to Kyokushin, and still just trained judo with the boys back over in Sydney, but wasn't really too focused, was more focused on striking. And then, and of course, like, boxing at the PCYC and at North Sydney. And then came across an old videotape of Royce Gracie, you know, doing his thing. I think it was UFC 2. And then just trying to look for jiu-jitsu back then during the 90s. That was fun. But then came across Aikido, and then got stuck into Aikido. It was Yoshinkan Aikido under Aga Sensei. And then had the good fortune of bumping into meeting a guy from Pancras. He was an American, well, is American. Then trained Pancras for a bit, and then by chance met up with a Brazilian in Bondi Beach, and he was part of Carlson Gracie through Zamario and Soul Jiu Jitsu, and then got stuck into that, and then got really into Jiu Jitsu for around 2 years. Then won the Australian Nationals in New South Wales comps for a bit, and then bit the bullet, then went over to Brazil, and then stayed there, lived there, worked there, and trained there and competed there, and then won a few comps over there and qualified for the Brazilian Nationals there. And then just had this back and forth, going back home from Sydney to Brazil. And then when I was came back from Brazil as a purple belt. And that's when I started training at Uncle Larry's gym. And then that's when I met up with Bruno Pano for a bit, trained with him, and then got my brown, and then started really getting stuck into MMA. Then fought in Judo, then fought in XFC, and then bit the bullet and went to Thailand, and was only going to be in Thailand for 3 or 4 months, and then just fell in love with the place. And then just MMA went on a back burner. Still kept training with Jiu-Jitsu, still kept traveling for Jiu-Jitsu, but really focused on Muay Thai. And then went over to the States, trained at ATT, worked at ATT, and then I was training with Marcelo Garcia and all the pretty much the heavy hitters at ATT at that time, and then came back, then decided to establish Q23, and then started fighting in it was a Dare, and then Legends, Dare, and then 1FC. So I had a 7-year hiatus for MMA and just stuck to Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai. And just been doing the martial arts lifestyle. So yeah, martial arts for life.
That's it, man. Massive, amount of energy expended across those years, right? Just picking up all that. You must be, like you mentioned in one of the other interviews, that you felt like you would be being titled ADHD, ADD as a kid. That must have helped to have the martial arts to channel into, right? Like
100%. Yeah. I mean, like, my parents were constantly finding ways to get my focus and get me tired. So by the time I come home, I just end up falling face first on the floor and getting ready for bed. But because there are positives and negatives to being ADHD, right? One thing that people with ADHD have is what they call hyperfocus. So they can just get kind of lost into their own world and just be completely absorbed and consumed. And one thing that I also enjoy is learning languages. So I'm not the best at it, but for me, like learning martial arts was just so much more than just learning how to fight. There was a whole social aspect. There was learning how to assimilate into the society and its culture and its languages and its food. So yeah, I'm a bit of a guts when it comes to food. I love food, and Thai food's pretty awesome. Brazilian food, if you really love the barbecue, what they call churrascaria, right? Or rodizio, it's just like, yeah. So it's good that I also do martial arts because, I reckon I'd be really overweight.
Really?
Considering oh yeah, for sure. Like, God, my calorie intake in Brazil, because I just remember training, eating, working, sleeping, then repeat. And for me, that was living it up, because I was in my element, and still am. So my job as a full-time martial arts business owner and practitioner, you need a good amount of calories, right? But it also allows me to cheat a little bit more often than usual. But yeah, so like right now I got 4 Tim Tams ready on the side, my cup of tea, and I'm good, mate.
That's it. You can kind of justify it when you've got an active lifestyle, right? Yeah, it's all right. I'm going to go.
Very much so.
Yeah,
very much so.
Hey, jumping back to you were saying before about the being a child with a lot of energy. Do you also? I heard you mention being dyslexic. Is that correct? You actually are dyslexic, or were, or
yeah. I grew out of it. Well, I like to think at least I hope I did. But sometimes, like when I watch fights, when I'm trying to study fights, right? And I'll notice that sometimes, even till today, sometimes I get my lefts and my rights mixed up. But I think I eventually grew out of it. I'm pretty sure I did. But yeah, I was massively dyslexic. Yeah.
So what is that?
I had 2 lefts.
Out of interest, just from your experience being a kid like this with, what some would call behavioral disorder, also dyslexia, what would you recommend for people with kids like that, like, how to handle them? I know it's kind of a little bit off track, but I'm just interested in your take, because I've got a couple of kids and one of them's dyslexic as well.
Right. Compassion. That's usually the first. I mean, if you're having to deal with kids, you also have, like, compassion helps their background, their environment, right? Also their culture. That helps. But with, I know it sounds like a cookie cutter answer, but martial arts really does help. It helps on so many levels, like the social dynamic level, helping them to interact, giving them a support system, a support network to work with, a platform to help them build confidence. Also, one thing that I have to credit my mom was, like, it's okay to laugh at yourself, and you should laugh at yourself often, because I still am very competitive with myself, and I'm critical, and sometimes that can be tough on a kid when they're learning how to develop and trying to feel like they for want of a better word, trying to fit in, right? So martial arts is a good way to regulate their energy levels, if dieting helps too, like, and it doesn't help if the kid has a sweet tooth. I have a massive sweet tooth, but you have to be able to regulate sugars, so diet and rest. I was a bugger of a kid trying to wake up in the morning. You had more luck trying to wake up a dead horse sometimes, but there's a lot of factors that come in, but if you're the coach, you also have to understand you have limitations as well in regards to helping the kids' development, because at the end of the day, you can only work. And sometimes for me, it's tough as well, because if you really love what you do, and you're really passionate about helping people with martial arts as well, you always end up giving more, right? So but the thing is that you have to understand is, so you don't exhaust yourself, is that if you only have that child 2 to 3 hours during the week, well, the rest also falls on the environment that they're in regards to their household, right? So, I mean, like, just do the best that you can, mate, and compassion and faith is a big help.
Cool. Thanks, man. Hey, just looking at your career, you've traveled around a lot, obviously born in Malaysia, lived and trained in Australia, lots in Thailand, lots in Brazil, US. You must be an advocate for, getting out into the world to learn and, follow your
100%. I really think traveling broadens, helps broadens your mind. It gives you a very different perspective, like just traveling, you notice there's when you're in a safe, comfortable setting, it's very easy to lapse back into what I call first world problems, right? But living overseas and seeing different demographics, right? Like different social demographics, different living conditions. Do you know what I mean? It helps put your perspective into check. Like one thing that I really believe is important is gratitude. So some of the dumb things that I got up to, I reckon I was born under a lucky star. And but gratitude, mate, yeah, gratitude is just so important. I actually I also had a bit of a nickname in high school because I had a bit of a temper. And martial arts definitely helped curb that in, and definitely my instructors helped pull my head in when I used to get a little bit fiery. But gratitude helps for me anyway, helps reset. I actually have it tattooed on my forearms because if I ever got frustrated, I don't know if you can see it, but it's in Chinese, it's pronounced in Cantonese gan, right? Now in Japanese kan, but so there's lots of reasons for me to be grateful, right? And whenever I forget, and whenever I do this thing when I have to try to reset myself, I just put my hands in a prayer position, and then it's a good, quick, easier reminder. Like Tim Tams, I'm so grateful for Tim Tams.
We're all grateful for them. Hey man, just out of interest, you've got the characters. Do you speak any Cantonese or Mandarin?
How to start a fight in one, but not have a full combo. My dad's the polyglot in regards to language, and it was just by default because of his environment, right? So my dad, he speaks Malay, English, Hokkien, Urdu, Pashto. Yeah, that's about it. Oh, and Indonesian. So that's pretty. Indonesian, Malay is so similar. So yeah.
Now, man, talking about the different cultures and something like about learning about moving around. Myself, I came from Australia. I had no idea, to be honest. I thought everyone thinks the same and comes from the same sort of thought patterns and that. And when I've come over to China, you realize after a little while that we actually process things completely differently. I'm just wondering, moving between such different cultures, anything that sort of sticks out, like example, Brazilian culture, Thai culture, what sort of key things stick out amongst those for your experience?
Well,
especially probably in relation to training and that, you know, like
in regards to training,
yeah.
in regards to training, well, I'm sure training nowadays is has a better approach to it, right? More scientific approach rather than just for want of a better word, machismo approach, right? But for me, trying to see the similarities was more of my focus, because in regards to viewing things through a martial arts lens, it was you know, that the expression real recognizes real, right? So trying to see common principles that run through martial arts, right? Like universal truths, right? So one thing that I notice in martial arts is when the trust and camaraderie that's built, the hospitality that comes with it. So for me, with traveling for martial arts education and experience, I've always found just the love and hospitality in cultures just so beautiful, man. Like the stories that I have that I've made in Brazil, and the stories that I've made in the States, and the stories I've made in Japan, and the stories I've made in Thailand, the stories I made in the Philippines and Korea, and you know, in China, you know, it's just the hospitality of it. It's crazy because when you think of martial arts, right, it's combative, and then on the softer side, there's relationships, you know, and connection and communication. And so I'd say through my travels is the hospitality, you know, the hospitality and the acceptance, you know. That's one thing that I think always sticks out in my mind from my travels and experiences with martial arts.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, right? Because you think of a you know, MMA fighter or a Thai boxer as it's like kind of like a solo sport, like a Ronin sort of thing you think of, but it's not really true, is it? Because you just have all those connections through, you know, through the people.
It's set off that way. It's set off that way. Like, listen, when I came to Thailand, I knew pretty much nobody in Thai boxing, you know, and mate, the places I've stayed, I was like, oh, I think I want to go back home now, you know. But I just stuck it out, and yeah, there was some beautiful fruit that bore from that persistence and resilience, I suppose. So, but I'd say the style of training also varies, and it's also, I think it has the reasons for the style of training from each different country. It's embedded in their culture, right? So I'll give you a good example. So in Brazil, when I was training jiu-jitsu, it was very hard. There were no soft days. There was even drilling was just like semi-fight, and then off you then go roll. So typical class would be back then a real hard session of conditioning, and then after the hard session of conditioning, 1 or 2 techniques, and then drill, and then off you go, roll. There was no progressive stress inoculation. You make the drill, increase it by percentages, 10%, 20%, and then experimenting and playing and trying to figure out how the move works better for you and how to adapt it with people with different body types. You'd have to find that out in the role, and the role was always never light. It was always hard. And even like boxing back home, we just, you know, it was warm up, skip, shadow, pad work, off you go, gum shield in, spar. And you'd always try to spar and, you know, try to spark your other partner, and you know, he'd try to spark you, and you know, a good session. All right, cool. Then rinse and repeat. One thing I learned about in Thailand was soft sparring is okay, and it's part of the gym culture. And going back home, I just when I go back and I see how some of the guys would spar hard, I'm like, no, I actually start to lean towards the Thai way of, because in Thailand the boys here fight so often, so they don't need to spark themselves in training. I mean, they have hard boxing sessions and stuff, but it wouldn't be gym wars. It wouldn't be gym wars every single day. You know, they put a lot more value of the finesse of the technique. You know, don't get me wrong, there's some killers here, right? Like Rod Tang and Nantachai and all these guys. But when you see them train, you go, how come you guys aren't going crazy in training, but yet you guys are animals in the ring? And granted, yes, they do start early, but there's a lot more play. And I'm starting to see that culture now in jiu-jitsu, because people want longevity in the art and the sport, right? Like here on Gracie, he always says, keep it playful. Do you know what I mean? And if you're not trying to put, you know, food on the table, and you're a hobbyist or enthusiast in regards to learning any martial art, mate, it should always be kept playful. I mean, have hard training sessions once in a while to pressure test your technique or strategy, but keep it playful. You know, I mean, I got enough surgeries to confirm that. So yeah, and because I you know, like I don't want to do, not I don't want to do, but I want to do this like Gregor Gracie, mate, until you put me in the dirt, you know.
Yeah,
I'll be rocking up at the gym at 80 plus, still rolling, trying to hold down the young blue belts. Do you know what I mean? So yeah. You know, that's my outlook on it.
Yeah, man. Actually, I read that. It's obviously not a common quotation, but I heard it the other day, and I was just thinking to myself, yeah, but you do need that pressure test, as you said, because
100%.
At the essence, it's like you got to be able to use it in a real
still combat.
Yeah.
In an athletic setting, you know. Yeah. I mean, like, what we do is combat athletics, right? Athletics, right? And like, if you look at the whole term martial art, we don't do martial fighting, and we don't, and you know, and we don't do, even though martial, you know, derives from the term military, right? But there's still an art, right? There's still what they call a yin yang or yin yo, right? There's hard and soft, you know, like Goju karate, right? Hard and soft, right? So, I mean, you just can't be, you know, kill, because no one's going to turn up at your gym at the end of the day, right? And that war of attrition, last man standing, well, good luck. You'll be the only guy there, or you might not be the only guy left because you're out. But the other side of it, as in the art, you know, there's a lot more other things that that you can gain the benefit of martial arts from having a soft approach, because it's about growth, right? I mean, like at the end of the day, people say, yeah, I want to learn martial arts for self-defense. But when you really get down to it, there was a lot, like I didn't get put into, I mean, granted, I did get, you know, I mean, when I also first started judo, it was because I remember I was in primary school and I had a huge crush on this girl. She was like a year or two older than me. And I just remember she chucked me to the ground. And I think my dad is like, nah, we're not having any of that. You can't get chucked by some girl who's 2 years older than you. You gotta, I'm putting you into something and learn how to fight, right? So, but in regards to that, your previous question, there's keeping it playful, helping you, giving you the confidence to explore and make mistakes, because you know there's kind of a stigma, you know, about making mistakes or failing. Do you know what I mean? And kids within boundaries should learn how to exercise their opportunities on learning how to make mistakes. And it's okay, because if you, like what Thomas Edison, he said he didn't fail 1,000 times to make a light bulb. He just learned 1,000 different ways on how not to make a light bulb.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's a playful, man. It's good. It promotes a healthy environment as well.
Yeah, man. And it touches on, like you just touched on then, about that balance, man. And I've sort of considered that a bit. I was talking with Cameron Quinn quite a while back.
Cam.
Yeah.
Shihan.
Just made me think a little bit more about that balance of, you know, of yin and yang and soft and hard. And that I think we're probably like these days, like myself included, just hitting pads and sparring and all that sort of stuff. I think get a bit more too focused on that hard side when you should sort of balance it a little bit more. So I kind of agree. And having worked over here with a few of the Thais that there's quite a few Thais training in Macau as well, working for gangsters and stuff as bodyguards. And they I've sparred with a few of them, and it is always like super playful. But the only thing is they can do it for like 10 hours in a row. Like you just there go, oh, I'm just beat up. This is playful sparring, but I'm a bit beat up and tired here, and they just don't stop, right? Like,
yeah, you'd be like, oh, yeah, that was. I remember my first early experiences too, because you know, I'm like, fuck, I'm all here by myself. Sorry for swearing. I said, oh, I'm all here by myself. I'm like, you know, do I have to like really put it on and make a stamp and make a mark here? And then you see, oh, is this how you guys train? Oh, all right, cool. Do you know what I mean? And then you realize, but these guys can just keep going and going and going and going. But that was also that kind of training regimen, right? Like 3 hours, 4 hours in the afternoon, 2-3 hours in the morning. And you're like, sometimes it is a war of attrition and a test of perseverance and resilience. But yeah, actually, what was it? Actually, I spoke to Cameron, I think around 3 months ago. Yeah, I can't wait to get his new revised edition of the Budo of Masayama. I think
I bought that one. I bought that one, but it's actually sitting in my house in Australia, so I got to get back.
Yeah. I gotta get that copy and get it sent over. But yeah.
Speaking of Cameron Quinn, it reminds
legend.
me of wanting to talk to you about the greats, man. You've been alongside a lot of masters in your time, particularly from reading and hearing about you, is about like some of the BJJ masters, Ricardo Laborio, so many. You said Mario Sperry, and you had a massive list of people, right? Can you talk on any of those sort of key people that kind of stand out in your mind for being, you know, influential to you and important to you in your game?
Well,
Too many?
Just in jiu-jitsu?
In general, I guess.
In general. So definitely see, because in Brazil, there are so many killers there, you know, but just in regards to social media, they just, you know, and also that time back then, it was a different time, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, just that hospitality. Like Zamario is one of them for sure, you know. And but before Zamario, there was another guy. His name was Walter Matos, right? And he was Zamario's partner in running Sul Jiu Jitsu. Sul in Portuguese just means south. So South Jiu Jitsu in Porto Alegre, Rio Grande do Sul, south of Brazil, right? So he was the first guy, and I just remember him just when he came to Australia, and he was just like showing technique after technique, and you know, and I just remember, you know, me and Luke Picklum back in the day I was just like in awe. But it was that spirit of I can tell you're really passionate about this, so let me show you, and this spirit of giving, right? So yeah, Walter Matos, Zamario, when Mario Sperry came over, and the boys that came with him, and one of them was Murilo Bustamante, you know. So I remember what helped plant the seed for me going to Brazil was I remember when I was training with Zamario, you know, and like, this is Mario Sperry, right? So I was just always trying to give it my all. And he turned around to me and he said, you know, if you first of all, I remember what he said. He goes, he was talking to one of his Brazilian buddies, and he tapped me on the shoulder, you know, like pat me on the shoulder. He goes, this guy can be champion if he wants to. And I heard that, and I was like, all of a sudden, you know, filled with pride. And he said, if you ever come to Brazil, he goes, you let me know. It was all you need is clothes and a ticket. And I just remember saying to him, I said, you sure? Because I'll take you up on that offer. And he said, yeah, bro. And then a year later, I was living in Brazil. And I remember walking up, you know, and I remember I had my money in hand to pay for the fees, right? And then he pushed the envelope back, because I had the envelope. I said, here's my fees up front. And he pushed it, and he goes, just come and train. And that was it. And then after that, I was just like, you know, and I always try to pay it forward, you know, in ways that I can. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly what I was thinking. And the best thing about setting that example is that it then lends itself to other people benefiting, you know, like that's how it works, right? You give and then
it does.
So yeah, it's good. And that lends itself to your teaching too, because like you were saying, you look for people, your students, you look for their ability to teach other people as well, so that it just keeps flowing, right?
Yep. I think by default, because back then, like, God, there were only 2 black belts in Australia at that time. John Will and Peter DeBean. And that was it, right? So some of the earlier generations after John Will and Peter DeBean, you know, we kind of felt like we had that responsibility that whenever we were in Brazil, was like to absorb as much as we could, as understand it as best as we could, so we bring it back and we could teach it to the boys and help the club grow and help the team grow. Do you know what I mean? And
a purple belt was a big thing back then. A purple belt was like pretty much like a black belt now, or maybe more.
Exactly, right? So when we had like Mario Sperry, Walter Matos, Murilo Bustamante, you know, all these guys coming through, it was just like, you know, God level, as they say, right? So yeah, I just always noticed, like, like yeah, this like when someone who's passionate about something and recognizes someone else that is hungry and passionate about the same thing, right? There's this urge to want to give. Do you know what I mean? Because it brings a lot of satisfaction as well. Do you know what I mean? Like I never really understood in the beginning when the older coaches would say there's nothing more or not nothing more gratifying, but it's very satisfying and very gratifying to see someone grow in a process that's positive, you know, and you see how that bleeds into other aspects of their lives. Do you know what I mean? So like I still get a kick out of today. I mean, when I see kids that turn into teenagers and then these teenagers turn into these young adults, you know, and they're well-mannered, they're responsible, they're driven, you know. But when you see them when they walk through the door and you think, oh, this is going to be a challenge, but I'm sure it's going to be worth it. And it is, you know, it is, you know, like some of the students here, like I have this one young lady, when she walked in, she wouldn't say boo to a fly. Do you know what I mean? And now she's this girl that's going to med school. Do you know what I mean? And she's a little, I call her a smiling assassin because she's one of those anime kids, you know? But then when she gets on the mat, you're like, what is this? Do you know what I mean? And it's just, it really warms the heart, mate, when you get to see that you're involved in that person's life. You know?
Yeah, man. And empowering someone like that, like something that really sticks in my mind was, do you know Erina in Australia? It's it's up north of Sydney. There's Gosford, Erina, Terrigal, this area.
Oh yeah, Gosford. That's where my cousin's from.
Yeah, my mother lives up that way, and I go back there to visit. And I've got kids in Australia, 2 boys that are going to school there. And I took them to BJJ. They don't want to do it, but I just take them to any martial arts I can when I come. And I took them to a class, and we're watching the class before it, which was the teenage class, and have a girl in there, and she's just destroying all the guys like on the mat. And it's just, I'm just looking at her thinking, how proud would I be to have had some part in that, or to be the father of this daughter and to have her be able to perform like that at a young age. Like imagine what that does to her to take her into life. Like you said, it leads on to other things like their confidence and everything. And, you know, you could be so proud of that person, you know?
Because in regards to BJJ, it's quite, I'm not saying BJJ in specifically, but for me, I found BJJ to be very cerebral, right? It helps you problem solve, right? In a live role setting without having your head caved in. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit hard to problem solve with no headaches if you're continuously hard sparring boxing every day. Do you know what I mean? But in BJJ allows you to have that opportunity, you know, without having too many headaches. You just
so your brain's
it trades in headaches for
that's what I was going to say.
Extended joints.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You won't have any headaches, but you might have a sore lower back and busted joints. Big fingers, funky fingers. Exactly. Hey man, we're getting out of time. So I've got like 10 questions that I'm asking.
Go for it.
Just to compile a list of different fighters and coaches answering. So it's kind of short answers. I know a little bit hard for you, Adam. You seem to like the long form answers, but just some short answers on these 10 questions. First,
I don't give slices, mate. I give the whole cake.
I noticed. Tips for training and motivation, just for your general person.
What age group? Because we're being specific here.
Yeah, let's say adult. That's pretty general, but adult.
Adult. For males, I would say the Thais have an expression. It pretty much boils down to, why would you travel by yourself? You know? So if you can get mates involved, because it's just it just helps with the process. Like, they might not be all the way through the end of that journey with you, but starting it with a group is just, it's more fun. And not to say don't start it if you don't have anyone, but try to start it with a group. Like, have a couple of mates, you know, even if it's just one. So that. Another one is listen to your body. Don't be a hero. You'd be surprised that don't ever feel like you can't take advice from I won't say advice, if you can't take learning from someone, even if they're a lower belt. Because I tell you, like, sometimes I see kids and I just thought, oh, that's really interesting, that move. Like, and that's a kid, right? So just always be open, right? About learning through other people's experience or perspectives. So be open from learning. Don't ever close yourself off from learning from other possible avenues. And second is listen to your body 100%. I would have, if I had a chance to speak to Adam 20 years ago, I would say that. And then the other one is do it with a mate, because the memories that you make are just, you know, they're going to be ones that are going to stick with you forever.
Sure. Second question, tips for true health. Like, overall health can be so many different facets, but what are your tips?
Fuck, I better practice what I preach, eh? I would say focus on core strength for sure. Don't get sucked into how much you bench, because how much you bench at 20 is going to be different from how much you bench at 60. But one thing that will definitely reap benefits is mobility and core strength. Those are the two things you need to work on. And anyone that's done BJJ long enough will definitely say, yeah, core strength, your back, because you need your spine at the end of the day. You know, like when you look at Joseph Pilates, right? Like, you see that guy's posture when he was 70. Like, it's better than some of the postures that the kids nowadays at 20 have. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, definitely those three things.
Cool. You said you were fiery in your younger age, man. Best street fight story? Do you have any street fight stories?
I don't have exciting ones. I have lucky ones. Like lucky. Like one was in front of Hoyt Cinema in George Street. Where Time Zone used to be.
It's pretty hectic area actually at times around there, to be honest.
Yeah, right. It was pretty full on. Now it's like, it's almost pretty, it's like pristine when I think about comparing it to when we were growing up. So look, I never started a fight, right? But
I always finished them. Just joking.
I never started a fight, but if I got stuck into it, I was into it, right? And that was mainly because of pride. So I remember we were walking out of town hall, and there was these guys that were just giving me the eye, and I was just like, what's the problem? And I looked up at them, and they looked at me and went, what? And I just went, I don't know, you're looking at me. What are you looking at? And the guy flipped me the finger, and I said, you're amazing. And goes, I can do that too. Look at this. So that didn't really help the situation. And then he had a few mates come out. I remember my late buddy back then, my late best friend, he pulled me, he goes, let's go. And I said, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Look at these guys, right? I said, look, on a good day, we could take him. And on a bad day, I reckon we would draw even, right? But then a few more came out. And then I was like, yeah, okay, we better run. So anyway, I remember we came out, I think we were watching like Young Guns 2, right? That's how long it was. And then I saw the same guys there in front of time zone, and we caught eyes, and I just went, look, listen, buddy, I don't know what happened. I don't know what was going on, but I extended my hand. I said, listen, I'm sorry, just, for sticking up the finger at you. And the guy looked at me and he just started cussing at me. And I was like, all right. I just went to bury the hatchet, so to speak, extend an olive branch. And then as I went to pull back my hand, his mate came around from the side, blindsided me, and just threw a hand right at the side of my jaw. And I went, all right, fair enough. If that's how you wanna settle this. And I just remember going, all right, come on, buddy. And then he leant over on the side and he yelled something. And then these bodies just started to just come out from time zone one by one. And each time one more person came out, my ego just went, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. And then next thing I knew it, me and my mates, we were just stuck in a bit of a situation, legs and feet and fists and boots will go. I do remember I caught a reflection and a shadow off the corner of my eye, and this guy came running up behind. He kind of did these really bad jumping front kicks towards the back of my shoulder and head, and I caught it, and an inch I moved out the way, and his boot and the rest of his body went flying past. And then he kind of stacked it, and it didn't help. I just laughed at him, but it was out of reflex, like, oh my God, I can't believe you spazzed it, you fell down. And then that didn't help the situation. And then it was, for want of a better word, I think it was around 8-9 versus 2. And then my buddy's like, it's not worth it, mate. Let's get out of here. And I remember running up George Street all the way up to the train station, and we jumped in a cab. The other one was when I used to work on the door, and I learned this lesson the hard way. If someone works on the door and they're a model, never partner with them, right? As muscly and as awesome as they look, just don't. So what happened, I remember I got left out on the lurch because one of these doormen, right, got starting to get manhandled, right? And I remember jumping in and I pulled the guy away. I said, calm down, buddy. And then the guy focused his aggression towards me, and I looked over, and then the pretty boy bouncer hid behind the door and closed it behind me. And then the next thing I knew, I had 4 of his mates come across the street. And this is when I reckon BJJ and learning how to fight off the cage really helped me. So I grabbed the guy in the clinch. I start throwing knees right up the middle, and his mates start coming from behind and pot-shotting me. And I remember turning him around, and I was pretty much cage walking along the side of the wall until I could get to the set of stairs, and then just trying to find a way to disengage and run off. But luckily, my mate, who was also used to fight in Pancras, right? He saw me through the window and came out, and he started helping me out in that situation. So I was lucky with that one too. Another one, not too far from King Street, having to deal with I clocked off work. So I wasn't working on the door. I finished early, and then we had to deal with a guy that was on freaking PCP. That was fun. I had to subdue the guy 3 times, and he just, every time he came back up, he just kept gunning for us. That was interesting. What was another one?
All right, bro, let's move on to the next question. I'll run out of time.
Yeah, so,
I'll run out of time.
I got a few.
Yeah, that'll do.
But all luck. I was all lucky, just lucky. So
that's it, man. So what's your best street fight technique, would you say? Or would you advocate?
Mate, learning how to get someone's back and rear naked, learning how to do rear naked choke. But also just to also stipulate is that it's really important to learn first aid. Do you know what I mean? So you got to be responsible with the sword, you know. So learning how to rear naked choke someone, because that's also saved me a lot. Do you know what I mean? Because it changes the dynamics of the situation, and it also help for me. It helped me get be shielded, and then once you're able to drop the person, now you made an obstacle for the person in front that had bad intentions. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, learning how to maneuver to get someone's back, arm drags, duck unders, and rear naked chokes. 100%. They've saved me so many times.
Good, man. Next one. If you could only learn one martial art, what would it be? I know it's hard for you. You have to give up your black shorts in Muay Thai and all.
Pink. I used to fight in pink. Hey, nothing wrong about fighting in pink shorts. One martial art. Wow. I was trying to tell a fat kid when he gets into a pie shop, you can only have one cake. There's nothing wrong with fat kids. I was one. I still love my Lemingtons. I'd have to say jiu-jitsu, mate.
That's the common answer, to be honest. So far, I've asked about 10 people, and yeah, jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, in the long run, and the cerebral approach, I would say jiu-jitsu.
And that seems to be about the longevity of it, right? And the different sides of it. Yeah. Next, what's the true value of learning martial arts?
Communication. Because it goes well past the whole, learning how to kick someone in the head or, taking them down or slamming them. I'd say communication. Yeah. Because there's something real about communication. Do you know what I mean? And martial arts helps definitely provide that. I'm not talking about your like McDojo martial art, but even in that, mate, like there's still this environment of communication, bad or good.
Yeah.
But I'd say communication, definitely.
Cool. I've got a couple of silly questions for you. Someone gives a good place. You're living in a good place to kind of answer this one. Someone gives you an elephant. You can't sell it or give it away. What do you do with it?
If you can't sell it or give it away?
Yeah.
Like if I had an elephant, I'd be loving it. Then I would try to find a way to look after it. Do you know what I mean? You imagine the pathways that you could clear with an elephant. Like, Mick, sort out the traffic jam. No worries. Yeah, now if I can't sell it or give it, I don't even know if I want to sell it. So I don't think that would be an option for me because I love animals, right? So
there's a couple of guys want to eat it. It's a bit harsh.
Well, I know the old expression, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. But that's an interesting answer because that wasn't the first thing that came to mind. But the first thing that came to mind was about how would I be able to find the means to look after it?
Yeah, true. Actually, one of the guys that said it has a Chinese background, and there's a saying in Chinese. I can't say it in Cantonese, but there's a saying: if its feet are on the ground, its back to the sky, we'll eat it. So it fits under that category, I guess. Yeah. Hey, next question: compare yourself to an animal. What would it be and why?
Well, I like to think of one animal, but I don't think I'd compare it. Is that I have an infinity for tigers, right? I just think tigers, unlike lions, they're quite solitary, right? So I'm very sociable, but I'm also quite personal. right? Private. I like the tiger because like the Amu tiger, right? Like the biggest one recorded was from tail to nose under 12 feet, and it was over 200 kilos. And that thing is, it's the perfect feline predator, right? The way that its teeth are designed, that when it bites into the cervical, it's designed to separate vertebrae, right? So it paralyzes the animal and they choke. So I like jiu-jitsu, so they choke their prey out. Very civil way of doing it, because at least they're passed out before they get eaten. And the other thing is that the humility in its approach to hunting, like something that big will still lower its body, crawl 2 to 3 feet on the ground silently, and then get its prey, but from behind. It never attacks from the front. So I'd like to think I would be a tiger, but mom calls me a German Shepherd. So I think I'm just a German Shepherd. I can produce fangs when I need to, but I prefer to be playful.
Yeah, actually, it reminds me of my first kickboxing trainer. My first fight, I got like iced pretty much, and then second fight I went to, he did like a imagery thing, like we sat down and kind of breathing and close your eyes and whatever. Imagine you're a tiger walking through the forest, sort of thing. And just that imagery really helped me, man. I went out like super strong in the second fight. You know, like it really did help me. They are a pretty powerful animal and pretty powerful imagery of them. You know.
They're so focused on, like, it's great. Like one thing I used to do, and I'm sure it used to weird people out, but I remember I would go to Taronga Zoo sometimes just to look at the tigers. And I remember I would sit there and just look at the tiger and just catch eyes on the tiger and just watch the tiger back. And I remember one time, Taronga Zoo, they had a Sumatran tiger. And it was one of the most crazy experiences. I remember we just locked on there, and I just looked at its eyes and it just looked at me. And I didn't want to break gaze. Actually, I got stuck in its gaze for one. When I think about it, it wasn't that I was just trying to see if I could break your gaze. It's a freaking tiger, mate, you know? But I just remember just getting hypnotized, actually, just looking at its gaze. And then by the time I knew it, it was already pressed up against the glass. And I was just taken aback by how powerful its stare can lock in. You know, it was humiliating. It was humbling. It was very humbling, you know. But I remember, like, when I'd go to the tiger sanctuaries here in Thailand, and I got a few funny stories. I remember I was laying down with one of the tigers, and my wife had her phone. I said, on the count of 3, I want you to take this photo. And she's just like, what are you doing? I said, 1. And she goes, what are you doing? I said, 2. And I said, 3. Take the photo. And because the tiger was on its back, I turned around and popped an ankle lock on it. And I said, take the photo. And then I let go. And she goes, I am never going to be walking the tiger sanctuary with you ever again. But I got the photo. I got the photo of me putting an ankle lock on a freaking, 100-kilo freaking tiger. So
at least it wasn't a rear naked choke, right?
Oh no, I don't think I'd have
trouble.
The neck on this tiger was just insane.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, but yeah, just huge. Just
all right, man. One more question. Another silly one. Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized Francis Ngannou's or 1 10-foot tall size Francis Ngannou?
Give me the tall one.
Why is that?
Cardio, mate. Cardio. 100 of them, they could just keep going on forever, right?
True.
Where the big one, yeah, I reckon I'd fancy going for the big one. Just one, mano y mano. I'm not sure I'd win, but I reckon I'd have a better chance of surviving.
Yeah, man. One of the guys said the big one too. Actually, two of them said the big one. One of them said, "I'll just get it over with," because 100's too many. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Get it over with.
All right, man. We've kind of run out of time. But I appreciate the time you've given me. Thank you so much. Good to have a chat with you, man. And
no worries, Toby.
And I still had heaps of questions that I wanted to ask you to get to, man. So maybe in the future, sometime in a year or so, I might try and catch you.
Yeah, you can fit one in right now. I'll try to answer as quick as I can.
Oh, it's good, bro. It's good. I've run out of time, so I got to run. All right, bro. But thanks so much for your time, man. And we'll keep in touch, eh? If you ever come over this part of the world, I'm in Macau. If you ever come Hong Kong, Macau, let me know. Oh,
for sure. Love to, definitely. So in Macau, yeah?
Yeah. I'm over this way. Cool.
All right, brother.
All right, man. Take care.